What is up, Steeler Nation? We are back again. We know we're doing this all year round. I'm JY. This is Mike Nicastro. This is the Sick Podcast, Steelers Crazy. Here we go. Let's get to it. Sammy, play it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Aaron Smith shields. Flacco, Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
All right, Jordan, this is very exciting. I think we announced to the fans on Tuesday and maybe last week that we would now create a fan segment where we're going to have somebody jump on weekly to talk Steelers with us. But today we're flipping it and reversing it a little bit because we're a fan of this guy, and we're really excited to bring him on. I do not want to mess this up. He's a jack of all trades, sports anchor, the New York Post, and SNY TV, update anchor, WFAN Sports Radio. He's got the New York sports scene covered, and he's jumping on to talk Pittsburgh athletics with us today. Dexter Henry. Love that.
Listen, thank you, guys. I love the intro, and I love the spotlight. Got the applause. You guys got a sick intro because it's a sick podcast. I love it. Thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you. As we said, we wanted to. We know that you're a fan of the show, but we're also a fan of you, so it's a mutual agreement here. So just tell our listeners and viewers just a little bit about yourself and how you became a Steeler fan.
Yeah, so a little bit about myself. My ties to Pittsburgh are that I am an alum of the University of Pittsburgh. So I've got a lot of love for the city I have. I will actually be there next week. First time since the pandemic, and to watch some Pitt basketball, which I haven't done at the Pete since 2005. So it's been some time. And it's a good time to come back because Pitt basketball is looking pretty decent this year in the ACC. So I have those ties there. I grew up in New York City from Brooklyn. Big New York sports fan, except I used to be a fan of the New York Jets. And as you guys know, being football fans, the Jet history isn't that good. They could just never find they could never find a quarterback, guys. It was just misery and disappointment time after time. So a couple of years ago, I decided to do what's best for my health and stop rooting for the Jets. And I said, well, you know what? If I had a team to root for, who would I go to? And I've always admired the Steelers and the way they go about things. Jordan, I've told you this, a competent organization that I like. And, I'm a fan of Mike Tomlin. I like the way he coaches. I like the way the organization handles themselves. And, now I'm a fan. And look, starting quarterback of the Steelers is a Pitt guy, so got more Pitt ties there. And, I've always liked the black and gold, so it was an easy transition for me to do that. And some people say, well, how could you jump from the Jets to the Steelers? Because I love myself. That's why. Yeah. And that's what's most important. So it's been fun being a Steeler fan. I know they're going through a transition, as we saw with the last year of Ben Roethlisberger, and then this year, the first year with Kenny Pickett under center. But, I think the future is really bright. Jordan, you and I have talked a little bit about that, and I think the future is really bright. And I'm excited about the Steelers, man. And you guys do a great job with your show. So
we appreciate that. I'll before I let Mike ask some questions, I do want to say I was a big Curtis Martin fan. So I actually followed the Jets for a little bit during his tenure. Obviously a Pitt guy. So that was my extent of that. Maybe I did enjoy a little bit of Chad Pennington, but rather than that, I think Joe Namath the last time that they were, relevant. Well, I guess Mark Sanchez, but.
Well, yeah, and then Pittsburgh ended those hopes in 2010. The Jets getting to the Super Bowl there. And listen, the Jets, they have had some Pitt greats, right? Curtis Martin, you got Darrelle Revis, obviously. So they've had some Pitt greats that have played there on that team that are in their Ring of Honor. So interesting ties there.
I love that you said you did it for your health. It's like switching from milkshakes to green juice or something.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you got. You know what? It's your health. It's your mental health, guys, and you got to think about the fact that the Jets is just a lot of stress and dysfunction. There's even news that came out today with strife within the team this year and players beefing with the off. See, these are things that don't happen with the Steelers. If guys have problems with the Steelers, man, you're not doing it the Steelers way. You're out of here, and I have a lot of respect for that.
but we are beefing with the Jets currently. I'm sure that you're probably aware. We needed the Jets to go into Miami and win that last game of the season with Joe Flacco starting to allow the Steelers to get into the playoffs, and it did not happen. So do us a favor and give your listeners and fans as much crap as you can from the sick podcast Steelers Crazy Guys.
So to that point, right? I'm last week of the season. I'm coming here to the studio, SNY New York Post, and I'm watching that game. Steelers, they're taking care of business. So I was watching that when I left home, and I'm like, all right, now I got to root for my old team to take care of business here, so they can get my new team in here. And what do the Jets do? Jet stuff, and they can't score against the Dolphins team who's got Skylar Thompson out there. And I don't want to kill Skylar because he actually showed up against the Bills last week. But the Jets couldn't do anything. Flacco couldn't get it done. He couldn't move the ball. And I thought the Jets would win the game. I thought the Steelers were going to get in. I felt very good about what needed to happen, and I thought they'd get in, but it didn't happen. But I do think the Steelers finishing the season 9-8, and such a positive note after starting 2-6 was huge, man. I think it was huge for the team. I know there's some talk, and I think you guys talked about this on your podcast, where, was it a success for the season? Some people might say it was better off than not, finishing with a winning season or getting a higher draft pick, or, once they didn't make the playoffs. But I think the season was a huge success in the fact that you developed Pickett. You saw some development with the offense. Najee Harris started running the ball really well at the end of the season. Now, there are still things they need to work on, but I definitely think it was a huge success. And I think Steelers Nation should be excited about the future.
Nobody to blame but themselves at the end of the day, because the Steelers did lose to the Jets earlier in the season.
Right.
It was Zach Wilson at the time. So, we can't necessarily blame the Jets too much when it kind of was in our own hands at the end of the day. I do want to ask you, you said the Steelers have some things to work on. What do you think those might be?
Yeah, so for me, heading into the draft, right, and free agency too, but I think most importantly with the draft, I mean, the biggest thing is I think you have the offensive line started playing better, but I think you got to sure that up. I think they need another stud offensive lineman there that I think can really shore up that offensive line. I think that'll help. I'm kind of fine. I've been thinking about the offense guys, and I know we found out yesterday at the time we're recording this that Matt Canada's coming back.
That was literally the next question.
Yeah. So I'll hold off on that.
Go ahead.
I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. Okay, I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. But I think the offense, the skill position players, right? I think you're fine with Pickens and Pickett look like they have really good chemistry, and I think that's encouraging. Obviously, Pat at tight end, they've got players there. I just think it's more about those guys playing together and getting in a groove. And once you have better protection and running the ball consistently, and sort of getting back to that Steeler way of football, I think they'll be fine there. Obviously, I think when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, I still think you can make improvements, and it'll be interesting to see how they draft in terms of that. Are they able to add another linebacker, particularly an outside linebacker? Are they able to do that? Can they still make some improvements to the secondary? I think those are some young guys that can still get some young blood in there. But I think the Steelers are in a really good spot because the defense is solid. We know the defense is good, right? We know that they can get stops and keep the offense in games. I just think for them, it's about like the offensive growth and the offensive line taking the next step and probably adding another young player to that. And I think they could be fine. I really do.
Good, Jordan.
Well, I'm gonna steal one of the questions that you were gonna ask and talk about Kenny Pickett. How good do you think that he actually can be?
I think Kenny Pickett can be really good. This is something I think a lot of times in the NFL, they think that, hey, you got to have like a top 5 quarterback. And I think, sure, that helps. It gives you longevity with your team and feeling that they can compete for Super Bowls for many years. But there's no reason to not believe, I should say, that Kenny Pickett can't be one of the best quarterbacks in the division. Like Joe Burrow is a standout. Lamar Jackson's obviously a dope quarterback, but we don't know what's going to go on there in Baltimore, and I think things are very tenuous there. So
I can't believe he didn't go to the playoff game. That was just even just to go there and support his team was just kind of like I know I seen Mike Vick kind of called him out there, which I honestly I agree with Mike Vick there. I think that he should be there.
I was shocked at that because everything you hear about Lamar is that he's a good dude. And he does so much good work in the Baltimore community. So I was a little shocked at that.
Yeah.
And the contract negotiation stuff there is tenuous. I think there's fair points on both sides.
Hmm.
Because I understand where Lamar's coming from, where he's like, look, I'm better than Deshaun Watson, and he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm also not a creep, and I should be paid more. But the Ravens, I think, are on the side of like, hey, just because the Browns were stupid to sign that check and pay him all that money doesn't mean that
Yeah.
we have to. And I think that's a fair. They're not wrong for that too. But back to the Steelers. Um, I I think Pickett can be better than Deshaun Watson because I just don't trust the Browns because they are the Browns,
Hmm.
and there's no reason he can't compete. And so you're asking about how good he can be. What I was going to say is, can he be between the 8th and 13th best quarterback in the league at some point in his career? Right? We've seen guys win Super Bowls with that being in that sort of range of quarterbacks, and I think he can be. I really do. I think he's got the tools because I think that once the game starts slowing down for him, which I think we will see in year two, right? We saw this late in the first season, not turning the ball over. He wasn't forcing passes at all whatsoever. He's getting more comfortable with his receivers, whether it's with Deontay Johnson. We talked about Pickens before. I think he can fall within that range. Do I think he'll ever be like a top 5 quarterback, super elite quarterback? No. But do I think he can be in that next tier where it's very good and steady? Yes. And another reason I believe that is because I trust the Steelers' development with that. When you look at how they developed the Ben Roethlisberger and brought him along slowly, maybe not throwing the ball as much, I think his development a lot will be tied to how well Najee Harris can run the
Mm.
ball next season, right? And if the Steelers are sort of able to get back to that run game, and then that allows Pickett to develop and see the game and make the passes that he needs to when he does. I can see next year he's throwing the ball a little bit more, 22 to 24 times a game. If they let him, give him a little bit more freedom within Canada's offense, I think that can happen. But yeah, I think he can be between the 8th and 13th best quarterback in the league. I think he can be a solid quarterback, guys. I really do.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah,
point
I
you made about
agree.
him being with the Steelers franchise is key, right? If Kenny Pickett maybe goes somewhere like Carolina, who is rumored to take him, or a
Mm.
team like Cleveland, or somewhere like the Jets, I'm sorry. Uh, who knows, right? Ultimately, if his development is kind of sort of in that same progression. I made the point I think it was earlier in the season, that he kind of reminds me a little bit of like an Alex Smith type. And I think Alex Smith was a really good leader, game manager. I think he'd be better ultimately in terms of stats. Smith was kind of a little cautious, right? And had really good pieces around him, but he played in some high leverage, big games. And I think he gave that 49ers team and the Chiefs team a lot whenever he was there for both organizations. So I think they can win a Super Bowl with him, and that's with Pickett. And that's what it is all about at the end of the day. We got Dexter Henry on. We're really excited. We're chopping it up. Steelers, Pitt Athletics, all good things right here on Steelers Crazy, the Sick Podcast. Follow us down there. You see the Twitter handle, of course, Instagram as well. Dexter, shout out your Instagram real quick.
Instagram, D Henry TV. You can follow me there. Instagram, Twitter, both the same. D Henry
There we
TV.
go.
Easy.
Nice. Good stuff. Let's talk about some memories. You mentioned you were a New York fan for a while, but converted Steelers fan, and I'm sure you were just always watching because you're in
Yeah.
sports and a big fan of the NFL. So some of your favorite Steelers players, maybe give me over the last
Oh
handful,
man.
decade or so, 5 years.
Yeah, for me, Troy Polamalu definitely won. Always loved how he played the safety position. Man, the guy was fearless and a ball hawk and just great. I always loved his energy from afar, watching him on the field. I mean, when I got to Pittsburgh for college, that was the end of the bus's career.
Yeah.
I always liked the bus before, man, because it's just like you
Hmm.
don't even see running backs like him anymore.
No.
Other than like Derrick Henry, who's that big and that imposing.
Are
So
you
I'd
guys
like to.
related?
No, we're not related. We're not related.
That would have
We
been
aren't at
cool.
all. But I got to root for Henry, right? So I do like that. You listen, Plaxico Burress before he left the Steelers and came to the
Yeah.
Giants, always a guy that I really liked at wide receiver. And then even you going back a little bit before that, when I was growing up, I really liked Cordell Stewart. I know
Yeah, I
he
was
got a tough
slashed.
time. Slash man. I know Steeler fans gave him a tough time, and then there was whole Tommy Maddox controversy and who should start and all that.
Yeah.
But Cordell was also, one of my favorites there. So yeah, there's a lot of Steeler guys that I've liked over the years. Now, TJ Watt fan. TJ is just incredible on defense, man, on this current team. And I'm really becoming a Pickens fan on this team. I like
Yeah.
Pickens, and I'm
It's
really intrigued
easy.
to see his growth. Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see his growth in year two because I really like him. I think he could be really special. So yeah, those are some of my guys with the Steelers that I've liked over the years.
Jordan, we got a Plexico Burris story. You could say that.
Yeah, so funny
Cool.
story. Plexico Burris was actually my neighbor because he
Yeah.
dated one of our friends who actually taught us in school. She was I forgot what she taught. Dr. Glenn. Shout out
Mrs.
Dr.
Glenn,
Glenn,
yeah, Dr.
Mrs.
Glenn.
Glenn, and yeah, they were my neighbors. So he would always his rookie year. I'll never forget. He rolled up and gave me his Michigan State rookie card and was like, keep working hard, kid, in his Range Rover.
Wow.
Always a nice guy. And yeah, it was really cool. And then he spoke at our middle school, him and Mike Logan. So yeah, Plexico was always like around. We're from a small town north of Pittsburgh, New Kensington. So he
New
was,
Kensington.
yeah, he was there. So, but yeah, man, the Pitt basketball. Speaking of that, I actually did an event and stopped by and met Coach Capel and his brother and some of the players, and I could just tell that there was just energy. I think that Pitt. The ACC is the toughest. If you're winning in the ACC, I mean, when you have to play Duke, UNC, Syracuse, like, it's not like you're not once tournament conference starts, like you're playing the best of the best in the nation. So I'm really excited for the direction that it's going. I know they got a lot of good transfers, which is crazy. So I hope everything pans out because I know Jeff Capel's a good guy. Every time I met him, just, nicest guy ever. So it's cool. And we grew up, me and Mike grew up in the era probably when you were going to school, like when they were, Big East tournament, Madison
Brandon
Square
Knight.
Garden, Brandon Knight,
Yeah.
Ashton Gibbs, who's a
Julius
friend of
Page.
ours. Yeah, DeJuan Blair. Yeah, I mean,
Those are
Carl
my
Krauser,
guys.
throw up
Carl,
the X,
I got a story for you. Carl Krauser and I, shout out to Carl Krauser because I haven't seen him in a while. Obviously, he's from the Bronx and
Yeah.
I'm from Brooklyn, but at graduation in 2005, we sat next to each other at graduation.
No way.
So that was pretty cool. But I was cool with a lot of the guys on that team. While I was at Pitt, I hosted a show called In the Paint when I was there doing a show on the Pitt basketball team. I mean, those were some glory years. You guys came up watching some good Pitt basketball.
Yeah,
The
we were spoiled.
You were spoiled. The Pete was rocking. My sophomore year was the first year the Pete opened.
That's when they still had the Dino cat.
Yes, that's right. And I have great memories in that building. I'm really excited next week when I get there.
You're not even going to recognize it when you go there. You're going to be like, it's all, like I said, it's
so nice.
Yeah.
Really, and it's funny because the last time I was on campus, which was in 2019, I didn't walk past the Pete. So I was kind of more lower. I was around Forbes and Fifth, and I was kind of really around there. I didn't really walk over to the Pete, but I know they built dorms next to it since I know a lot of some of the development that's happened around there and then up on the hill. But yeah, it's going to be really good next week to get to see the Pete and be back in there. And it's been a long time, so it's going to be fun. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Before we get you out of here, we kind of like to get this perspective because, we're both from Pittsburgh, and in Pittsburgh, what is it like from the outside looking in New York? Like, what do people think of the Steelers? Like, is that like like, do you know what I mean? Like, I always just like to get, because I'm a homer, so I'm always going to, go with, I'm realistic, but at the same time, I'm always going to go with my heart. It's just cool to get another perspective from someone that's,
do they hate us because they ain't us?
Yeah.
Nah, you know what's funny? The Steelers are, the Steelers are one of these teams, right? Like they're like, and I think people understand when I say this, like they're like the Cowboys and the Niners and the Packers, that have really big national followings because of the greatness that they've had in the past. And you'll definitely find other Steeler fans in New York. In fact, I have two homegirls that are like big Steeler fans, so we watch games together and stuff like that. And
they converted from the Jets, right?
No, it's funny. One of them, I'm actually not sure. Shout out to my homegirl Yvette. I'm not sure exactly. She's just always been a Steeler fan. And then my other friend Erin, who went to Pitt with me and actually worked at PXI in Pittsburgh for a bunch of years. She's also a fellow journalist. We've known each other since middle school. She has family ties to Pittsburgh, and she's always been a Steelers fan. So her boyfriend is a Jets fan. And I tried to get him to come over, but he won't. He likes the misery. I try to help him, but what are you going to do? So what I was going to say is that the way Steeler fans, I think, are looked at in New York is not as people respect the Steelers. There's a respect for the Steelers. I've never heard anybody say, "Oh man, I hate the Steelers." Right? Sometimes if you find some old Raider fans here in New York, you'll hear that, and I understand why. But the Steelers are not Cowboys. Now, if you're a Cowboys fan here in New York, people are gonna give you some looks. Steelers, nah, it's usually a level of respect. And you'll see, like I was.
Yeah, it's like a 5-hour drive.
6.5, actually.
6.5.
7.
I guess if you're going to,
if you're going like into the city, and I've done that drive many times. But like Steelers have a lot of respect. I don't get the hate, but deep down, I got to be honest. If I'm really being honest, and the Jets fans don't want to know, the Jets fans wish they were the Steelers. They know they wish they wish they had the competency guys of the Steelers. And I think that's the thing that people got to respect. The Steelers are a competent, well-run organization. You got to respect that, man. Got to.
We will not clip that and put it on on our Twitter or Facebook or Instagram
Please
page.
do.
That might be a little too close to home. All right, there we go. Why not?
You do whatever you want.
Yeah, of course. Speak your mind always. You always do that, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you on here.
Yeah,
Thanks so much for supporting us. Obviously, we're excited to put this out there, and we have listeners in New York too who are big Steelers fans. So hopefully, they're able to get in touch with you.
They actually have a New York thing, like on Instagram and Facebook, like specifically for New York Steelers fans. So
I didn't know that. I gotta join.
I'll send you it. Yeah,
send it to me. I gotta join in and check out with those people. And they're everywhere. And I'm Steelers Nation has welcomed me with open arms since I decided to become a Steeler fan. And it's good to root for a team when they are rebuilding, and then you have back-to-back 9 and 8 seasons. Because usually
they can't say you're a bandwagon.
Nah, because you can't say I'm a bandwagon fan. It's not like I jumped on when they were good. I jumped on when it's actually supposed to be down. But here's the thing, guys, Mike and Jordan. When the Steelers are down, you get 9 wins. When the Jets were down, you get 3 wins. Or what happened like this year, you start off 7-4, and you end up with a worse record than the Steelers. And see, that's why I changed.
Smart man. Well, hey, we appreciate your time, man, and we'll definitely keep in touch and, just tell the people again where they can, check you out. Does your the New York Post, is that like on YouTube? Like you can watch it online. I know I just read your article in Essex Magazine, I think it was, on Damar Hamlin. That was really good.
Thank you, man.
So
it was an honor to be able to write that. And if people want to check me out, you can check out the article. Essence Magazine wrote an open letter to Damar Hamlin. It was an honor to be asked to do that as a fellow Pitt alum. But you can check me out. Follow me at D Henry TV. I'm also on the SNY and New York Post Sports YouTube channels. And then you can also check out my NBA show I do, the NBA Exchange. It's on a YouTube channel called Backpack Broadcasting, which is some of my productions. And I also co-host a podcast, a sports and hip hop podcast called the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. You can catch me on there as well, too. But Mike and Jordan, thank you guys for having me.
We should start. You're going to be the guy that we call when we start the pension to bring an NBA team to Pittsburgh, right?
Hey, listen, man.
The Pittsburgh Pipers.
Listen, we got to bring back the Pipers. I have long said I'd like to see Pittsburgh get an NBA team. Unfortunately, I think the next 2 expansions will be Seattle and Vegas. But Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh could support it now. I think when I was there,
they can play it to Pete.
Yeah, or they could play it with PPG as the new PPG is where the Penguins are. And I was there the last time I was in Pittsburgh. It's a little bigger. I went in the building. It's a nice arena. I was there last time.
Duquesne played there. I know they have the city game there sometimes, and I know like when the Harlem Globetrotters come into town, they play there. So it's definitely doable.
PPG is a nice arena. I got to see it last time, and I was there for a Penguins game, and I really liked the arena. So it's good, man. Pittsburgh's a great city, great sports town. I tell people that all the time. It's a really good city. A lot has developed in the last 20 to 25 years there. And it's a great place to go. So if you haven't been to Pittsburgh, for the people who aren't listening, haven't been, please go.
I think we can end it on that. We thank you for your time again. And this has been another episode of Steelers Crazy. Remember, we're going all year and maybe the off season, but we're just getting started. Thank you again. I'm JY. That's Mike. That's Dexter. See you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.